Good evening. Welcome to MGR MGR Premier League Game Week 5 review. I'm John with Phil, and we're going to digest everything that happened this weekend. And we're going to start with the old Merseyside derby. We every week we at Vanguard we predict the results for the weekend, and then we review the scores. So we'll start with that game. 2-1. You put down, Phil.
Right? No. It was I mean, to be fair to it was quite a wet game, wasn't it? To be honest, and in that part of the world, but Liverpool again, what they needed to do looked like they were cruising. And Everton, to be fair, came out in the second half, made a complete game of it, and flipped it on its head, really. So the old cliche game of two halves, to be honest. And to be fair, they've done the job again, haven't they? They didn't really see a bit of game management involved, should we say? And I've heard some back and forth and seen David Moyes' interview. So, about kind of time wasting. I think we've touched on kind of one of the most bizarre yellow cards you'll ever see, getting booked for a quick restart, which, we've all seen people booked for time wasting, but for time speeding, I'm not too sure what that's about. And I think maybe we're as perplexed as Jack Grealish was in his post-match interview. But it was a fiery game, a feisty game. It's what you'd expect from a derby. Liverpool did what they needed to do, and they got the early goals, 2 good goals, and then managed the game out and saw it out. And probably quite relieved at that for those of us who watched the derby at Goodison Park last season, and then the highlight finish. But impeccable start to the defence of the title, really, and they look. They look frighteningly calm and frighteningly composed compared to everybody else at the moment, considering they're not particularly playing very well. So mentally calm and composed, should we say, rather than maybe physically being on point. And more of the same, but I think if you're an Everton fan, you're either going to be disappointed you've given Liverpool a game. You were well in it. They weren't smashed off the park, and bodes well for what David Moyes is doing up there. So, but like we thought probably before the weekend, Liverpool just had too much and too much nous and experience, really. And job done. Decent match though. Good way to start the
week. Nathan's sadly not with us this evening, but we've also got his predictions. He predicted 2-1, just like yourself, Phil. I had it down as 1-1 draw, and I was probably closer than actually reflected hopes. I thought, there were chances towards the end of the game where Everton could have stole a point, but sadly it wasn't to be. To your point, very silly yellow card. Can't get why that was given. Grealish again looked positive.
It did look good.
It looked good again. Dewsbury Hall, it looked good. Had glimpses of some really proactive football from him. Gravenberg, though, his goal.
It was really good.
And his assist. Really, really well taken. Etikite took the goal really well as well. So, potential doubling up on fantasy football points there. Would have been a good shout, to be fair. But yeah, overall, I'm 5 points clear now, though, Phil.
Yeah,
Does that worry you?
I think it's far too soon to be worried. I think, from a personal point of view, I think they've got to come down to the Emirates in the same way we had to go to Anfield. You've got to believe that we're going to win that match, or certainly push ourselves to win that match, which levels off the loss at Anfield. And Man City hopefully will continue to improve, which means that they'll also give Liverpool a difficult game. They've got the likes of Tottenham are looking difficult to beat. So that they've got tough matches to come. Obviously they're ticking, and obviously or they're ticking the boxes at the minute, should I say, rather than ticking. And at some point, obviously, it will click, and they'll go through a run of form. But we all know form's temporary. So the question is how long the form will last, isn't it? And I think we've talked about looking at the fixtures are starting to stack up now. The Champions League started and the League Cup's coming. And I think that's where the squads will really be tested. And I still think overall Arsenal have a better squad than Liverpool. So there's elements of luck involved, isn't there? Clearly, who will get the injuries, who will get through with less injuries. But clearly you don't want to be 5 points behind your rivals, after 5 games, and you don't want to have lost to them. But we have done. So you're playing catch up, and you don't want to play catch up in a title race, do you? Because all the pressure's on you. Because every time you drop points, it's a problem. But it is what it is. It's not the end of the world. 5 games in, but clearly not where you'd like to be. But we'll see. I think there's still a lot of work for Liverpool to do to bed those players in and get them firing. You know, we all know Kirk seems to have it's 5 games, do you know what I mean? But you know, he's not exactly setting the world on fire so far, is he? Wirtz doesn't look particularly great at the moment. Isak's nowhere near fitness, which I know all looks negative in terms of they're all going to get fitter and better. But you know, that can take months. You know, people think it's happening in 5 minutes, but it can take months for players to settle in, get used to the speed of the Premiership, get used to the way Liverpool want to play. So, but clearly you don't want to be 5 points behind, and clearly they're in the driving seat at the minute as the defending champions. They have to be the favourites. That is unbelievable transfer window. They know how to win the Premier League, and yeah, you can take churlish shots at the way they've got the perfect start, but fundamentally they've had a perfect start, so it means jack shit, doesn't it? Like the 15 from 15, you can't knock that at all. So yeah, it's so we say we're aware of it, maybe more than concerned about it, aware of it, but you know, it's been a good start from.
It has been a good start. You touched on Spurs there briefly as well, saying they had to beat. They proved themselves hard to beat this weekend, 2-0 down. Managed to get a two-piece draw with Brighton. You, myself, both had 2-1 Spurs, and Nathan had 2-0 for Spurs as well. So we all predicted a Spurs win. Brighton strong at home. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I thought Spurs would have too much for him. I thought, you know, certainly the first couple of games under Thomas Frank and the first impressions of Spurs this season, he's got them really well organised defensively, or certainly looked on organised defensively. So quite for me, I know Brighton have been creating a shed load of chances in the last few matches. They've also been spurning a few chances along the way. So I was a little bit surprised to see him go 2-0 up, to be honest. But then Spurs kind of showed the fight that I think it already looks like Thomas Frank has put into them, really. They didn't seem particularly daunted by it. They didn't seem thrown off their stride. You know, they clearly had the mentality of, you know, the game's not gone, even though they're 2-0 down. They're clearly not just going to give up on things and leave it where it is. And I don't mean a Postecoglou kind of gun-ho kind of, we're just going to attack kind of way. It was more structured, it was more measured, it was more controlled in how they did it, which possibly last season they might have got 2 goals back, but they might have also conceded another 2 along the way, so that they still looked organised and defensively sound, even when they were chasing the game, which I think is already the change and a tick in the box for Thomas Frank, who we've all said I think he's a fabulous manager. So yeah, it was a bit of a strange second goal. You know, the own goal was a bit unfortunate and a little bit of luck involved, but fundamentally, you've got to work to get the luck, haven't you? So I was surprised Spurs didn't have enough to beat Brighton, but I guess when you give anybody in the Premier League a 2-goal head start, you're up against it, aren't you? You can't just assume you're going to score 3 goals in the Premier League. So I think they made hard work of it. But I think they showed the sort of character that in an away match, you look at it, I suppose, from a Spurs point of view, it's an away match. And therefore it's a point gained, isn't it, really, from being 2-0 down away from home, for your team to come back into it. Yeah, you know, what, 35 minutes into that match as a Spurs fan, you're ripping your hand off for a 2-2 draw, right? You're 2-0 down. So I think they showed some real fighting spirit, organisation and character to come back into it, as much as that pains me to say. I think they showed that, and I think it'd be Brighton. It's probably the counter opposite, really, off the back of the last few weeks. You're showing amazing promise, but again, if you're 2-0 up at home, I think you're pretty disappointed to be seeing that go to 2-2 and not see it out with the chances they were creating in the first half, beginning of the first half. You know, I think that was definitely a win for Thomas Frank over his counterpart, really, in terms of tactically how they managed that game. I think Brighton should have showed enough to see that game out, really. But no, it was a ding dong match, to be fair. Lots of goings on. Just yeah.
Yeah, we're a good game to be fair. I remember staying and watched with Mentor's goal, took it really well, broke through, finished really well. Xabi Simons, obviously for Spurs, he looks good. A couple of attempts, possibly could have scored towards the end of the game as well. He looks like he's fitting in nicely, to be fair. And yeah, I like Thomas Frank. I think he's finally got hold of Spurs. I think this definitely steadied the ship. They're playing a style of football that the Spurs fans definitely starting to recognise now. So, you know, I think yeah, they've improved massively from last season. Definitely tightened up.
They seem to have power in their midfield, don't they? With Sarr and Palhinha, you know, they seem powerful in the middle of the pitch. You know, with the 2 centre backs behind Van der Ven and Romero, in it, like they've got quite a powerful core to the team. And even to be fair, Kulusevski and Kudus, they're hardly shrinking violets, are they? So they do seem like quite a powerful team to compete. They're another team, I think, who, as well, our previous point, as the fixtures start to rack up, it'll just be interesting to see how they cope with injuries without, because I don't think they've got the squad depth.
Yeah.
Although I think they've got very, very good first 11. So, but you're right, seeing Thomas Frank put his stamp on that and get a chance, it's great to see, isn't it? That kind of story arc or journey arc from kind of lower league manager working his way through and earning his stripes, and finally, I like to see that, because although he's not English, he's been in the English leagues for a long time. He's almost adopted, and he kind of and to see that kind of story arc from a manager who's worked through the lower leagues of our own country. It's really good to see. You see so many foreign managers dropping and go, what's he done? Or he's managed in Division 2 and Division 1 in like France or Switzerland, or who gives a shit about that? What about the guys in our Division 1 and 2 working through? So it's nice to see that, even though he's not English, but he's been on an English coach's journey, really. So no, like I say, it's a painful season wishing him well, to be fair, because I do wish him well. He's just the club I can't possibly dive into. But yeah.
Nice. West Ham Palace. We all predicted a Palace win. We all predicted. Oh, sorry, myself and you predicted 2-0 win for Palace. Nathan a 1-0. So nobody predicted the West Ham goal. And Bowen snuck one in.
Yeah, do you know? I think he's one of them where if it was going to be anybody, it was going to be Bowen, wasn't it? Like he seems to be carrying the weight of the entirety of West Ham on his shoulders at the minute, and you could question whether or not the only reason he's there is because of his father-in-law. But he's if anyone's scoring, it's going to be Jared Bowen, isn't it? He's been a super professional for him over the last couple of years. In fact, he's shone ever since Declan Rice left. He's clearly become a team in that time. But Palace, we all thought Palace would have too much for West Ham. They couldn't necessarily predict where the West Ham goal was coming from. Say if you were going to predict anywhere, it would have been Bowen. But Palace just too organised, too structured. Glasner far too much now for Potter. And it showed on the pitch. And although, all right, for a short period of time, West Ham brought themselves back onto level pegging. The match didn't really play out that way. You didn't really feel like West Ham were going to deserve to win that match. And at the end of the day, it was a well taken goal by Mitchell. And it's worthy of winning the match, isn't it? And so once they got ahead again, too organised West Ham. Not enough. To know. Like I said, whatever Potter was showing at Brighton all them years ago, he seems to have left it in Brighton when he's moved on, because he's just not with him at the minute. It's not happening. And you do think if it wasn't for those moments of genius by Jared Bowen, how much worse could West Ham be at this point in time? He's already in that position 5 games in. So yeah, it played out as we expected. Scoreline maybe a slight surprise, but yeah, Palace just too organised and too structured. And Glasner's doing a fantastic job, and even with having had so many players moved on underneath him.
Yeah, I think West Ham defended really poorly. Mateta's goal, great reactions from him to get up and to rest that ball coming back at him.
Just devastated where he didn't get it from a fantasy football point of view.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I think Mateta again just proving again, like what you've touched on before, you'd like him at Arsenal is a good centre forward, a class centre forward to have, target man, and again just the way he reacted to score that goal, thought was brilliant. Other than that, Potter's probably going to see Nuno go to West Ham from what I've seen on the Twitters.
I just think it's all right. People say West Ham are loyal to managers. I don't believe the fans are. From an external perspective, I've been listening for so many months to whine about David Moyes after everything. Me, my own personal opinion is about loyalty to two-way street in football. But I've watched how ungrateful and how dismissive they were of everything David Moyes had done for them. Graham Potter's got no credit in the bank at all. His argument, or the argument last season was, well, it's not his players and he's not had a transfer window and he got to bed his philosophy. He's had all that now. And they don't look any more organised, they don't look any more inspired. They don't look any more, light on the eye when you're watching them play football. It looks laboured, it looks difficult, it looks unconvincing and not very confident. It just looks...
It's very disorganised. They've got some class players. I mean, they've got a good team. Quite Bowen,
Souček,
yeah. I think he was banned, wasn't he? He was on a red card, wasn't he?
Yeah, from previous week, yeah.
But it just seems a lot of disarray as a whole at West Ham, and obviously the fans are as well.
Famously, West Ham, haven't they? Have got supposedly the best squad that ever got relegated from the Premier League. So it's not, when we're maybe in a similar position, we're listing off a whole load of names of players. You think, well, they could walk into a lot of other mid-table and lower mid and lower upper table teams, but they're not working as a team. They're not working as a unit, you know. And it does remind me of that West Ham team that had all that plethora of stars in that got relegated all them years ago. And if they're not careful, they'll be doing the same thing again. So yeah, they need to do something. Either, you know, Potter needs to either pull out some sort of magic or some sort of turnaround, or they need to just, it didn't work and move on. Do you know what I mean? Because it's not working right now, and they're in danger of, you know, there'll be another month down the line if it's carrying on like this to be being cut adrift, and then you're into that toss-up situation that Everton had last season, aren't you? How long do you stick with someone before we're too far adrift the pack? It doesn't matter who else we bring in. So,
Yeah.
And I don't know where that leaves Graham Potter after that, really, because this was supposedly the step back to his level of Chelsea being too much for him. Currently, it looks like Chelsea might have taken more from him than we all thought. Really,
Just shows how quickly managers do turn around in Premier League. I mean, at one point, you know, people were calling for Potter to take on the Ingles job away from Southgate. At one point, he was he was doing that well at Brighton, but
well, you
how
never
quickly
know, do
times
you?
change.
Like Brighton and Tony Bloom have got such an unbelievable support structure and succession planning and identification of players and scouting system and the manager always takes in all the clubs. The manager takes the fall, he takes the credit, he takes everything, doesn't he? And everyone assumes it's the manager, but actually, all of those support structures in Brighton are so incredibly well thought out, and so incredibly technologically driven by Tony Bloom, and he's invested fortune to have it that way. And it's because he's identified that's the only way the teams with lesser amounts of capital can compete.
Mhm.
But did Potter take the plaudits of things he wasn't necessarily responsible for? And at the minute, you'd have to say yes, because the evidence of your eyes at Chelsea and West Ham suggests exactly that. You'd like to think there's more about him than that, but he just seems a shadow of the guy who was managing Brighton. So we'll see. But yeah, the result exactly what we thought. Crystal Palace
Yeah,
too strong, too organised, and I say, you know, Glasner, he's doing great things, isn't he? Again. So, you know, and I think we've all got, you know, a soft spot and a real hope for Palace in Europe, really, because they deserve it, especially after they deserved it already, but especially after the way they were treated in this nonsense of getting bumped to the Conference League. You know, they really deserve a good run in Europe, to be honest. So yeah, glad to see them
yeah,
still doing well.
absolutely. Again, I hope to see him challenging for Europe in some format this year again. I mean, yeah, I always said last year, Palace are starting to look like dark horses if they can keep certain elements of the team together, and you know they're pushing on and getting results. So fair play to them. Talking about pushing on and getting results, that wasn't the case for Wolves. They lost heavily to Leeds, 3-1. Nathan predicted a Leeds win, 1-0. Yourself had 2-1, and I had 2-0 win for Wolves down. Nathan, the only one
Yeah,
scoring point there.
I thought Wolves. Well, to be fair, I think we all talked last week and said it was kind of a coin toss, really. Wolves had to show the Wolves that had come out in the first half against Newcastle. And I don't think Wolves showed the Wolves that came out in the first half against Newcastle for long enough in that match.
No.
You know, Calvert-Lewin, fair. You know, Calvert-Lewin did what Calvert-Lewin does. To be fair, he's very much like Callum Wilson from your boys, isn't he? Like ex your boys now, but you know, if you can keep him fit, he's unbelievable. But keeping him fit is a miracle in and of itself. So, you know, but it isn't it? He's got glass legs, and he just struggles to stay fit. But you know, he looked confident, he looked fired up, he took his goal well. And Leeds did look good, you know. I mean, at the end of the day, again, regardless of whatever Wolves' problem are, you've gone away from home, you've won 3-1 in the Premier League. That's a huge. None of the promoted sides did that last season.
No.
So, you know, it's not easy to do. You do have to be organised. They did look good. They scored 3 goals after going behind. You know, it's not easy to do that in the Premier League. So fair play to Leeds. So Wolves, we talked last week, like I say, put it on a coin toss, mine and your prediction, I suppose, that we both said if it was the Wolves that came out against Newcastle, it clearly wasn't. And like we said last week, if they show the Wolves from the matches before Newcastle, they're going to have big problems this season.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what they showed, isn't it? They showed the wrong side of their character and got battered by a freshly promoted team on their own patch. It's not a good sign, that, to be fair. And it's all right, Pereira signing a new contract, but he's got to be thinking in his mind, you know, what am I doing in a club that just will not back me, you know? And Wolves have been showing that for the last 5 years, haven't they? It's a constant string of we'll sell our best players, we'll sell our best. They are a selling club, and they rely on the managers. You know, fair play to Nuno when he was there. They rely on the managers being organised enough to get results with talent that's being overshadowed by the teams they're playing. Broadly speaking, what's happening again. The question with all those situations, like Southampton a few years ago, when's your tipping point in that you've sold too much talent, and now the manager's got an impossible job. And I wonder if they're at that tipping point this season, because they, you don't want to be going down, regardless of how well Leeds played. You don't want to be going down 3-1 to a newly promoted team at home. It's not good enough.
I mean, to be fair,
Particularly after this performance they showed against your boys away from home. If you're showing that away from home, your home form should be better against the team that's just come up, because Newcastle are far superior to Leeds, and they were in that game for far longer than they were the game at the weekend.
yeah. I mean, to be fair to Wolves, they had 3 good chances before half time. They could have only wrapped up in first half if chances had gone in for them. A great free kick by Satch. Calvert-Lewin,
It
absolutely
was a
spot on
good free
again when
kick.
he's working, when he's playing well and he's fit. To your point, he will find, if he puts himself in that situation where the ball will just come to him and he'll score a goal. So yeah, really disappointing for Leeds. Any fans watching again, it's for what? Sorry,
Wolves. I was
for
going to say Leeds
Wolves.
aren't
Yeah,
playing at
for
all.
Wolves. Like, yeah, just I'm genuinely worried. I'm really struggling to find a way. You can't have 20 minutes every week where you look good and hang your hopes of your season on that. It's just not working for them.
Well, that's the story of all the promoted teams last season, isn't it? I
Yeah,
know Wolves not a promoted team, but they all looked amazing for 15, 20 minutes out of the 90, and then they got battered every week.
yeah.
It's not enough.
It's just not
These days,
happening.
we've said many times now, these days you've got to be expecting 100, 110 minutes and able to compete in all those minutes. Otherwise, you ain't winning the matches. So,
Yeah.
not enough from Wolves, and worrying times for them, to be honest.
Yeah, it's not looking good for Wolves. Moving on from that anyway, we've got Man United and Chelsea. Lots of talking points in that game. Phil, you had 3-1 Chelsea.
My God, Robert Sanchez, what the hell was he
Yeah, what were you
thinking?
doing?
I was watching that match, and as I saw him start to come, I'm just screaming at the TV like, "What are you doing? Leave it to your defenders!" Just absolutely appalling decision making. Completely screwed your team over in the first 5 minutes. Then you've got absolute, competitor for the worst managerial performance of the season already from Maresca in the next 20 minutes in terms of taking off all your attacking players. I mean, I understand you're behind. I understand you're behind. I understand you're planning to defend, but take off all your attacking threat. Just so bad in terms of how you. Yeah, and then obviously compounded by looking even more ridiculous when Casemiro got sent off and you've got no attacking players left. Like, just unbelievable. Chelsea should have been able to annihilate Manchester United in the second half. If they'd have had their attacking players on the pitch, 10 versus 10, that match would have been a foregone conclusion for Chelsea, in my opinion. Yeah. But they'd already taken all the threat off, which was made even more bizarre by the fact they were 2-0 down and had to chase the game. It was almost like, well, we've given up the game. Let's just try not to be embarrassed. We don't want to go down 4 or 5-0 to Man United. So let's just make sure we're shoring it up so that we don't get humiliated. And then, as I say, 47, 48 minutes into the first half, the whole situation changes and you're left just looking stupid because you've got no threat in the second half to get yourself back in the game. Scrappy goals from Man United, nothing particularly amazing. The goalkeeper, or the fair play, the substitute goalkeeper, is at fault for the second goal because Howie doesn't just come and catch it. It's a modern pet peeve of mine that goalkeepers don't understand how to use their freaking hands anymore. I used to play clearly under 15 level, like your goalkeeper and stuff like that. The first thing we taught, catch the bloody ball. Like, why not just step forward and catch that ball before he heads it? It's just unbelievable. Yeah. And he thinks about it. He steps forward twice and he steps back again. Like, what are you doing? Like, jump with your arms up. You're taller than everybody else in the box and just catch it. And if they get touched, the referee's there to defend you anyway. So, just silly play. And allowed Man United then to just sit in a shape in the second half and try and counter, which, good signs for Man United that Cunha's back, fair play if you're a Man United fan, seeing him come off the bench. And I suppose if you're a Man United fan, you've showed heart, you've showed fight, and you've got a game over the line that no one expects you to get over the line, to be fair, but just appalling from Chelsea in terms of individual player decision making. Poor in terms of the urgency from the players on the pitch in the second half, and that you thought they'd had 3 weeks to score, how slow they were moving the ball forward. Poor from Maresca in terms of the substitutions, and just overall, I guess, showing complete and utter. Probably the one thing that's Chelsea that Chelsea don't achieve very much this season. It's going to be because of lack of experience. they've gone down this. They are run as a business. They are all about buying young talent and young players and young manager and young everything, which is brilliant. But if you have absolutely no experience, to caveat the old famous Alan Hansen things, if you win nothing with kids, at least Alex Ferguson had a core of experienced players that the class of '92 came in around. Like they've got the class of '92, and then just bad from start to finish from Chelsea, and they must, as a squad, be looking back on that this morning, or now looking at how on earth did we just misplay that so badly? But just off from Sanchez. I mean, someone made the point at the weekend, like, I get it's a business, and I get they want to make money, and I get probably if you're a Chelsea fan, you're not happy that your owners only care about cash and not about what you do on the pitch. But how on earth you can have Robert Sanchez in goal and not just go and buy flipping Donnarumma instead of Garnacho when you've already got about 12 billion wingers sat on the bench and you've got no goalkeeper? It's just bizarre. Like, they could have walked in and taken Donnarumma, no problems, and they'd have had a much better season. But dreadful from Chelsea. Solid enough from Man United, but Chelsea made it very easy for them, and I think let them off the hook. And Amarin breathes again as a courtesy of that now, really, which for a game he didn't really have a right to win in. Chelsea just got the job right. But it was a bit of a shock all round, I think.
Yeah, I think it's definitely bought him a little bit of time, hasn't it? Obviously, he's helped out by the red card. Sanchez, ridiculous. He should never be coming out like that. He's got two defenders around him. All he needs to do is just jog himself back and hope that his defenders get there first. If he gets lobbed, he's still on the pitch.
And if the worst had happened and Mbeumo had smashed in a worldie, who cares? At least you've still got 11 players on the pitch.
Exactly, yeah. So just stupid goalkeeping has really, really pissed me off. I mean, Nick Pope's one of them. For me, it's hard to forgive. But yeah, a result probably most of us expected not to happen. But yeah. Moving on from that, we had Fulham Brentford. Pretty good game, to be fair, if you saw any of it.
Only a small part, to be fair, because I'd seen the Man United Chelsea match, and my children were demanding my attention in the evening, to be fair. So it was doing our own sports in the garden. But no, it seemed like a goal from good match from what I saw on match today. Again, Fulham did what you would want an experienced Premier League. They might not have the superstar talent of some of the bigger clubs, but they've got bags and bags and bags of experience in Marco Silva and in the squad, and they showed that experience. Brentford. We've said for a long time now on this channel, but Brentford are going to struggle this season. You've lost the manager, the captain, the flair in terms of Mbeumo. Wissa. They've lost so much from the squad. And it seemed like a decent start, but Fulham just too experienced, too knowledgeable, too savvy. I think there's no real surprise in the result, to be honest. We thought Fulham would have too much. Oh, I think we did anyway. I mean, you've got the results in front of you. I think we thought Fulham would have too much for Brentford.
Nathan had 2-0. We had 2-1 for her.
Yeah, so it wasn't shocked that Brentford get a goal because the battle, and they've got some good weapons in terms of set pieces, in terms of long throw-ins. But Fulham broadly did what we thought they would do, which is be more organised and more savvy. Is my take, Seth, from having not seen a great deal of it.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair to Fulham, they're starting to look they're playing some really good football again. Kelly made some great saves. He won't be past to Wilson for the 2-1. What a phenomenal pass that was. Just cut the defence in two with that. And yeah, Fulham looking strong at home, looking really strong at home. So fair play to them, good result. Not a great result for my boys Newcastle though. It was a very, very boring game away at Bournemouth. 0-0 finish. You had 2-1 to the tune. Nathan had 3-1 to the tune. I was down for a 1-0 win. Almost fell asleep.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I mean, it's early days, isn't it? To be fair, there was a few instances where I just felt Voltemade had probably just a bit of inexperience, a bit of lacking killer instinct, which will be a concern at the moment, I suppose, because his problem in the maybe not, to be fair, once Whiston, so I was going to say his problem in the Newcastle squad is going to be he doesn't have a more experienced striker, particularly to learn from. I know Wiss has done some things for a couple of seasons, but he's a very different type of striker. So I think the thing for Voltemade is going to be, who does he learn from? I get he's got striking coaches, but in terms of squad mates and that, who's taking him under his wing and going, right, this is where you need to be. This is what we're looking for. I mean, closest thing he came to a chance was him diving in the area, wasn't it? I know you're going to tell me that there was some contact, but I mean, if you look at the size of him, I mean, you'd have had to have been a flipping Arctic lorry to knock him over for the dive he took. It was, sorry,
Yeah.
Paul, it wasn't enough, you know, and clearly he felt some contact and gone down. It's not.
I mean,
So, and I mean, you'd argue probably quite comfortable that Bournemouth had a much better shout for a Premier, to be honest. You know, because you could debate that hand position all day long, couldn't you? But I mean, I don't often run around my hand up there. It's you know, but it's one of them where, like you say, probably the plaudits and the player of the match award really wants to go to those fans who didn't fall asleep. It was somewhat lacking, which I think probably much bigger concern for. I know Bournemouth are at home, but a much bigger concern for your boys, I would imagine, with what you're looking and hoping and expecting to achieve this season. It just like we've touched on before, and I know it's a bit delicate on this job, to be fair. We'll come on to Arsenal being similar, but I think all three of our teams this season are showing restrictions and restraints that probably don't have us very impressed. But it's early days. Obviously, Wiss is going to come back from being injured, and Voltemade is going to learn. And you know, it's only last week we were singing his praises because he took his goal really. He did take his goal really well. Do you know? I just think we've probably none of us seen enough of his play before he came to Newcastle to make a considered judgment. So he is going to get judged on what he does on the pitch because we're not very aware of what he achieved before he came to Newcastle. But just not enough. And I think that's probably the disappointing fact when you see the sheer amount of. Well, let's take the first three matches. You know, we all said Newcastle's problem was they're creating like dozens and dozens of chances and had no one to finish them. Whereas on the weekend, they just didn't create anything. So that you got the guy in the box to finish it and then you stop creating. it seems, Anthony Gordon wasn't in and stuff like that. But I don't think one player makes a difference. You've got enough attacking talent in that team, you know, that when you start listing off how much attacking talent you've got, you definitely should have created more. I think Bournemouth will be the much happier of the two teams. Although to be fair, you could probably argue they're probably disappointed that you didn't get down to 10 men. Because that lad who should almost definitely have been booked for that second tackle outside the box. First match in the Premiership, wasn't it? T something?
Chow.
No, that's it. Chow, is that what we're pronouncing it? Is it? I'm not watched a hangover in a long time. But no, he should definitely have been sent off. I mean, you can't make a tackle like that when you've just been put on a yellow card 2 minutes before, and the only reason the ref let him off is because it's in his mind thinking he's just booked him. But it was a clear yellow card challenge. You'd be freaking raging as a Bournemouth fan that you had to play the last of that match against 11 men. But other than that, yeah, not a great deal of incident, and probably just from a Newcastle point of view, you want to be pushing Bournemouth harder than that. with you've got much bigger games this season that are far more important. But that's why you want to be putting those games to bed. And ironically, you mentioned Nick Pope earlier. You know, good job for you, made that cracking save from that free kick at the end. Otherwise, you'd be a lot more disappointed, to be fair. So, yeah, we talked a lot, to be fair, about the game, and not a lot happened.
Really. I mean, the first half an hour wasn't bad. It was a bit of a 2-0 throw-in, but no one creating. Porto he had a bit of a poor game. I thought he got defended pretty well, to be fair. But yeah, maybe there could have been a penalty. I think there was definitely a shirt pull. He did go down probably a little bit too easy for me, though, to be fair, in all honesty.
I think the
if you're going to go down,
if you're going
to go down with a shirt pull, you've got to at least be tempting to play the ball as you go down.
I think
Don't just go down the minute you feel it.
My issue with a lot of it is that the thing that frustrates us as fans is consistency. So having rules that are subjective are a problem, right? Because for me, if a shirt pull's a foul, right, then any shirt pull, regardless of whether you fall over or not, should be a foul. Whether you're on the centre line or whether you're on the D or whether you're in the 6-yard box. If you tug someone's shirt, foul, right? Doesn't matter if they fall over, doesn't matter if it's a consistent pull, doesn't matter if it's enough, just make it a foul. And it's the same thing, and we'll come on to it in the Arsenal City match where, and me and you debated it many, many times a couple of years ago when Arsenal were robbed at Newcastle, right? Is that if you're going to say a two-handed push is a foul, then again, it doesn't matter whether it's two-handed push that makes the guy fall over, or it's a two-handed push that makes the guy stumble, or it's a two-handed push that makes the guy even just feel his back of his shirt. It's a foul. Stop making things subjective. If a shirt pulls a foul, make it a foul. Because the issue with the subjective stuff is, like you've just said, you think it's a penalty. I don't think it is, because I think on the standard we see today, a shirt pull's got to be enough that you're either stopping the player moving or you're making the player fall over, neither of which happened to Voltmade on the weekend. But I agree that a shirt pull should be a foul. So my issue is, why is VAR subjective? VAR should just be saying, shirt pull equals foul. Has he pulled his shirt? Yes, he has. Penalty. That should be it. Because as soon as you make it subjective, people are just pissed off straight away. Because I think it was, I think it wasn't, blah, blah. Just make it a foul, black and white. Yes, it'll piss people off in the short term. So, oh, you can't give a penalty for that. Do you know the answer? Train your defenders in training. Stop touching people's fucking shirts. It would fix the issue. You'd probably have about 30 penalties on the first weekend in the Premier League. Do you know how many you'd have to, about 3 weeks later? None, because they'd all stop pulling shirts. They start running and defending properly. But yeah, like I said, we could debate all night. But like I say, you could say the same thing for Tonali's handball. It was Tonali, wasn't it, Livramento? But you know, and again, the issue being subjective. You know, is it natural? Is it not natural? Well, you've just got to have a straightforward rule. If it either, again, if it's his hand, penalty. If it doesn't, his hand, no penalty, and then enforce that rule, and then you'll get ridiculous penalties. But it kind of just got to go. Well, they'll go for you, they'll go against you, because the subjective stuff. Say if you're a Bournemouth fan, you'd be I would be narked as a Bournemouth fan, because I think you could, because like your shirt pull on Voltman, I think you could debate it back and forth for 2 or 3 days and probably not get to the right answer. Because like I say, how many times you sit like that? Not many. I get you're going to tell me he was defending his face, and that's probably it. But it's a debate, isn't it? And as soon as you get something that's a debate, it just irritates people. What irritates people, sorry, is VAR then, because if it's a subjective rule, what the fuck is the point of VAR? Because if it's subjective, that's what you've got the referee for. Yeah. If it's black and white, that's what VAR should be for. And that's my opinion, is that you shouldn't have someone sat in a truck hundreds of miles away going, oh, that's sustained, take your shirt, but that's sustained contact. Well, no. If that's a subjective decision, the referee's already made a decision. So don't even bother looking at it, because you're not in a position. What you're basically saying, and anything subjective, it is, we're going to allow the person in the van's opinion to overrule the referee's opinion. But the reason the referee's on the pitch is to referee the match to his opinion. So, you know, it just seems silly to me. VAR for black and white, in my opinion. But anyway, we talked more than the game took on Match of the Day.
Well, yeah, staying in the North East, we had Sunderland and Villa.
The proper team in the North East. People carrying the torch, yeah?
I know, shocking. Well, I got this one correct. I had one apiece. Phil, you had 1-0 for a Sunderland win, and Nathan had, naturally, a Villa win 2-0. Did you see much of the game? What do you
think? I think Aston Villa, as much as Nathan's not here, so before we say this, Nate, if you're watching, I'm not just shooting this because you are not here. I'd be shooting at you if you were here as well. I think Villa are in massive, massive trouble. And broadly speaking, that's why I predicted the Sunderland win. And do you know what? I think if it hadn't been for that bloody idiot kicking Matty Cash, I genuinely don't see how Villa would have even got a draw from that match. I think Sunderland dominated that game from start to finish. Even with 10 men, they showed far more than Villa. My opinion, I've said to you, you know, at the end of the day, Matty Cash gets lucky. He smashes a ball straight down the middle, and somehow the Sunderland goalkeeper finds a way to dodge out the way of it. Yeah. I get people going to say, oh, the ball moved and blah, blah, bullshit. At the end of the day, it didn't move that far. He got his hands to it. So I just think, yeah, Villa looked, for me, again, you think about where you would have been as a Villa fan and put words in Nathan's mouth or anybody else who's watching, you know. You miss out on the Champions League by the, you know, one referee's call that was crazy last season. And you come into this season with massive hopes, and then you're going away to a freshly promoted team. Probably not getting relegated. Freshly promoted team who are down to 10 men. You don't create anything. You don't even look more. They look more dangerous than you do playing 10 against 11. that is a massive problem for Aston Villa at the minute. The creativity. I mean, they looked poor anyway, but then you saw the stats on match day at the end of it. Just where their stats are compared to last year, and an XG of 0.2 across all their games is just not good enough for a team that is expecting to win. We all expect them, and I do expect them and hope from an English point of view. I always support the English teams in Europe, even Tottenham. And I do expect Villa to go far in the Europa League this season, but based on what I saw last season, based on what I've seen this season, I expect them to get flattened in the Europa League, to be honest. And they need to do something about it. The performance last week in the League Cup was awful. The performance this weekend was poor. Just didn't create anything. And Sunderland looked by far the more confident team, even though they were at 10 men. And I think it bodes really, really well for Sunderland. Fair play. He's gotten really well organised.
Yeah.
They've got unbelievable spirit in that stadium. I think that, it's your point about home form for Fulham being important. I think, we talk for the promoted sides, home form being important, and Sunderland just look like their home form is going to be a bit of a bastion for them, really. And when you look at how Wolves are struggling, how Brentford look like they're going to struggle, then I think it could be the thing that, for all three promoted teams, is a huge boon to them this season. And yes, Sunderland look really, really good. But, and again, I know I've done it a couple of weeks already on this cast, but shout out to Granit Xhaka again. Unbelievable assist. One of the best headers you will ever see. I mean, that header is a sheer piece of class. If someone like Messi or someone or Ronaldo had done that, we'd be waxing lyrical about it. It'd be all over flipping YouTube and everywhere else at the minute getting lauded on. So that header, cushioned header, was unbelievable. Fair play to the lad who took the finish. And that's 3 goals in 3 home games for him. And doesn't he love playing at the Stadium of Light? And, much I love pulling your leg about it. It's they're coasting above you in the table right now, aren't they? So, there's only one team in the northeast again, but and it's red apparently. But I just think, Sunderland had far too much for a really lacklustre Villa team. And I think, we touched on the pre-show, when you've got your manager coming out calling your players lazy, that's a worrying sign, because it's a manager's job to motivate the players to not be lazy. So if you're going to go out on camera and say your players are lazy, in my mind, you're basically going, I'm shit at my job. Because why are your players being lazy if you motivate them properly? If they're with you, if they're playing for you, it's a concern. And I know Nate touched on it in last week's show, and I had a pop in for it about, kind of Villa fans turning on Emery. But, it was only a few months ago in some of the warm-up shows we were doing before going live, and I was mocking the position that Emery was one of the best managers in the league, and I was saying to you, it won't last, and kind of it's a flash in the pan, and this is how he went wrong at PSG, this is how he went wrong at Arsenal, this is how it's gone wrong for him before. And here we are a few months on, it's all happening again at Villa, and suddenly the Villa fans are turned on him, and in the space of 8 months he's gone from the best manager in the world to, oh, hang on a minute, we might be looking to bin him off because he's not good enough. So people have got short memories, aren't they? But it's looking really, really flat on and off the pitch at Villa right now. And broadly speaking, I think you would say, because had it not been for that Wally kicking Matty Cash, I think they've got away with one there, because I think Sunderland would have had him. I think Sunderland would have taken him if they'd have been 11 against 11. And again, from an England point of view, if you wrap on, I think Ollie Watkins looks in a dreadful vein of form right now. So nothing good to say from a Villa perspective, really, if I'm honest. And a lot of good things to say for Sunderland, as much as that pains you in black and white part in the northeast. But it was a really good game, I think, to see. For a 1-1 draw, it was a really good game to see Sunderland's fight and Sunderland's spirit. So from that perspective, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, the red card was still left. There were no need for that, and I do agree with you. From what I saw from the game, Sunderland were on top most of the game, creating lots of chances. Aside from Matty Cash's strike, there wasn't really a lot else to talk about for Villa going forward. Watkins had a couple of really good chances. I know one of them was offside, but you should be burying something from 3-4 yard out. Regardless of whether you're offside or not, you should be smashing that into the back of the net. And there were another chance later on in the game, similar, about 6 yard out, and it failed to hit the target again. And just makes you wonder what's going on with Ollie Watkins.
So
I suppose in general,
I know Nate shouts us down about him, and I would say he was here as well. But there's so many rumours over the summer about Emery's relationship with the squad. And the names that were popping up were Martinez, were Watkins, and these are the players who are not performing. So it's all right saying that he hasn't lost the squad, but you don't have smoke without fire, do you? The players who were named in the summer are the players who are not performing. It just seems a very very close coincidence, doesn't it? Really. And I don't know what's gone on there, but it's like I say, there's big problems for Villa to turn this around. I think. Although the positives, I would say, I mean, there's a couple of highlights from Jadon Sancho and Harvey Elliott had a shot that I think we all expected to bulge the net. To be honest, and I think Harvey Elliott is gonna do well in that team. It'll be interesting to see how he fits him in when Tielemans comes back. But I mean, other than that, it's just not enough. And to be honest, a little bit like last season, thinking about it now while we're on camera, and the highlights were coming from Asensio and Rashford, and again the highlights were coming. I know Morgan Rogers played well most last season, but a lot of the highlights in the later season were coming from players on loan, and it seems to be the same way again. And what does that been kind of, maybe gone a bit stale, or maybe lacking a bit of inspiration from the manager, maybe. But yeah, it's not good. But well played, Sunderland.
Yeah, fair play to Sunderland. Is no one else sat there looking on, thinking there's a job there at Villa he could possibly go for? I mean, would you gamble on sacking Emery and getting Nuno in? That's based on one of the tweets I saw over the weekend.
Well, I think if you're in the camp of people, like I say, I always prefer to lean towards loyalty, right? And like I say, I didn't agree with Nate last week when he was talking about people starting to talk about Emery's job, because I think if you genuinely believe what you said 8 months ago, 6 months ago even, that Emery's one of the best managers in the league, how can you possibly be considering 6 months later binning him because you're on a poor run of form? Well, he's only form, and we all know class is permanent, form's temporary. So how can you possibly be suggesting that he was one of the best managers in the league and now going, oh, actually we need rid of him because he's shit? Like, it can't. Those two things don't correlate. Either you didn't believe what you said last season, or you're overreacting and knee-jerk reacting to what you said this season. So I do think it would be knee-jerk to do that if people. But I mean, personally, as an Arsenal fan, last season I questioned every time Nate said he's one of the best managers in the league. I don't think he is. I don't think he's a master tactician. I don't think he's an unbelievable manager. I wasn't impressed with his time at Arsenal, and I don't think he's all that as a manager. Therefore, I could say I think Villa should look to move on, because I don't think he's one of the best managers in the league. However, I was roundly shouted down by endless numbers of Villa fans last season telling me that I was completely wrong and Unai Emery was like the second coming of Christ. In which case, if they believe that, then they should be giving him more time, because if he's as good as they say he is, he should be walking on water all the way back into. So I don't think Villa fans have got a leg to stand on in terms of getting rid of Unai Emery, because supposedly they think he's one of the best managers in the league. From my own point of view, don't believe that position. I think Nuno does have the capacity to be one of the better managers in the league. I think he showed that last season. I think he does deserve a job in the Premier League somewhere. And I think it's probably, like we said about Potter as well, there's probably a couple of managers right now looking over their shoulder and wishing that Nuno still had a job at Forest, and because I think it's far more likely they get binned for Nuno than they would have been binned for Postecoglou. So, well, yeah, but I wouldn't make that leap just yet if I'm a Villa fan, because if I'm a Villa fan, I think I should be showing loyalty to the man I supposedly think is one of the best managers in the league.
Be interesting to get Nathan's views on this, and hopefully we'll catch up with him later on in the week or maybe next week. But yeah, let's move on away from Villa. Last game of the weekend, another big game. I know you're keen to get your point across on this one, Phil. And we had City.
Am I? Am I? I'm not sure I am.
Debatable. Well, we had a 1-1 draw, Man City Arsenal. You had your boys down for a 3-1 win.
Yeah.
Nathan also had you boys down for a 3-2 win, and I had a score draw 2 apiece booked in for this one. Where do we start?
Where do we start? I mean, I think they swapped shirts before they came out the tunnel. I think it was defensive masterclass from City and a possession domination by Arsenal. But I think, you could debate back and forth for a very long time. What does domination mean in football matches? Couldn't you? It's all right, Arteta and Declan Rice and everyone in an Arsenal shirt telling me we dominated that match, and I can see the possession stats, and I don't know if you've heard it, that it's the lowest possession any Guardiola team's ever had in his entire managerial career. So wow. No Guardiola team has ever had a lower possession than that. So you can argue domination all you want. Domination means shit all if you don't create chances. We didn't look dangerous. Never ever felt like City were hanging on. I get the fact they put 10 men behind the ball, because it was literally like watching the Etihad fixture from last season. We were hanging on down to 10 men for all that time, and they weren't at 10 men, were they? So I think that from a perspective as an Arsenal fan, positives would be, if you've got Manchester City showing you that level of respect, you must be doing something right because Pep's no idiot. Do you know what I mean? It's all right, all these people know, Arteta needs to do more and blah, blah, bullshit. But at the end of the day, if Pep is showing that level of respect, he's not doing it as a favour to Arteta. He's doing it because he thinks that's the only way he can win the game. Really disappointed with the Man City goal. I think, we get dragged into a melee in the middle of the pitch. Fair enough, that can happen at times when the ball breaks. Haaland sprinting so far clear of Gabriel on a straight sprint and Saliba not covering it very well. I think we'll probably test that. That probably question mark on Arteta to why put, not why, we know why, but was it the right call to put Saliba in when Mosquera's been playing so well and Saliba's pushing back to fitness? I don't know if it made a difference or not. The big disappointment was Haaland sprinting away from Gabriel. It's like one of those things you watch and it's all right saying that, and Gabriel and Saliba do love to defend, but he didn't look like he loved to defend then. He looked more than happy for Haaland to run off him, which it just wasn't enough. I think Haaland started sprinting and before Gabriel realised that he'd already got 10 yards on him, and I think he caught a few yards back up, but it was too late, too little. So that was a really disappointing goal concede, and I think that shook them. They looked to shadow in the first half. I think I've heard a lot of talk, and I don't agree with much of it about Arteta making mistakes in the first half of the teams. I was disappointed with his team selection, I'm not going to lie, but I think to say it was a mistake is a bit rich when you could never possibly have imagined that City's game plan was going to be to sit on the edge of their own area and not come out. So you must have expected to have a proper competitive match in the middle of the pitch, and therefore at that point his decisions would have been proved right. To be fair to the guy, the second it was obvious, within minutes of it being obvious that that's how City were going to play, he had his subs warming up at the end of the first half and made the aggressive change into the second half, which is really positive. I love the fact that Timber came off for Martinelli, not because I don't love Timber, but I just thought that showed real intent from Arteta. So to people say,
he scored really well, didn't he, as well?
Yeah, but for Arteta to show that intent, everyone said he's a defensive manager and he doesn't want to win, but then they took his defenders off and put attackers on. It was obvious City were going to sit deep. It was obvious we were going to be doing the attacking, and he made those calls, and I think that was really crucial. I think Eze looked unbelievable when he came on. I think he ran that midfield. I think there's a if Arteta needs any argument to say he shouldn't be, that's it, because Eze played really well, way more dangerous. Saka looked really lively, which was fantastic on his first half football back. Really nervous about Madueke because I've seen some rumours today he might have been feeling his ACL, which would be really disappointing for him when he's been playing so well for England and for Arsenal. But yeah, in terms of, that's similar for us. But again, like I said, it was almost a perfect mirror of the Etihad match last season, that moment's lapse of concentration for us to let John Stones score. Same for them to let a fabulous run from Martinelli. Unbelievable finish, fantastic pass from Eze to pick him out. And I'm not going to lie, my kids probably have burst eardrums off the back of it, to be fair, because I was extremely ecstatic in my living room. And it's one of those where it leaves you feeling, it's a very strange feeling on once the game's gone, to be fair, because you have that massive elation of the fact that you thought you were losing that match. And then you pull it back with that goal at the end. And to be honest, obviously, it was really interesting last 3 or 4 minutes, to be fair, because both teams kind of went, fuck it, let's go for the win. And nobody sat back, and both teams were trying to get a winner. But once that elation dies down, you realise the only team that won out of that match was Liverpool, fundamentally. They sit there and watch their 2 rivals drop 2 points each. Like I say, that makes Liverpool the big winners of the weekend, really. But I think when you look at the position we were in the 91st minute, you take that mark, and it was a lovely goal. You can debate Donnarumma's positioning. You can debate City should have dropped off. You can, as a City fan, maybe you could be slightly frustrated, but fundamentally, they did it to us the Etihad last season. We were disappointed, so I think it was a mirror image, really. But it was. Like I said, we didn't feel like we created loads of stuff. Felt like we were reasonably comfortable. It also felt like City had that threat on the break. Until pretty much they took Haaland off. I think Doku had a really, really good game. He looked fabulous. And Haaland looked really good, really like Haaland does, to be fair. I think what was interesting was seeing Haaland defending for so long in the second half.
Yeah.
For all we would all say that Haaland he's not interested in playing football. He just wants to score his goal and then he's done for the day. He didn't show any of that. And I think probably some of that comes from Pep's motivation. I think some of that comes from Haaland's personal animosity towards Arsenal. Because there was a lot of needle last season that the teams don't like. Not don't like each other. I think City have got that arrogance of the fact they've won Premier Leagues, and Arsenal have got that up and coming new boy thing of like, we're here to take your place kind of thing. And there's a lot of needle between them, isn't there? And
City
but
really liked the ball in the back of the head last year from Haaland. That was cheating.
well, to be honest, that's the thing that switched me off to him. To be honest, I just think he's a dickhead after that. To be fair, I think for me, I think I'm all for fiery competition, all the rest of it. But I think cheap shots and low blows should be beyond players who are meant to be quality. But regardless of which team they play for, so yeah, I think it was a really it was a I
It was
don't
a
know.
strange game, wasn't it? It was a strange game.
I want to say it was a really good performance from Arsenal, but I'm not sure it was, because I think City came and refused to play football, and it was, I suppose, from that perspective again, you go, that's a huge positive for Arsenal. That, I mean, who could have dreamt of that 3 or 4 years ago, that City would come to the Emirates and refuse to play football because they're scared that if they play football they're going to lose. And broadly, what Guardiola said after the match was that, you know, we knew we couldn't press high, we knew we didn't have that ability, so if we had to sit deep and had to counter. So unbelievable respect, and you know, again, for all the noise, and I get this doesn't win you any championships, but you know, for Arteta to become the first manager ever to go 5 games in a row and not lose to Pep. I get people who go back, oh, it's same old Arsenal talking about consistency over trophies, but they are relevant stats. They are relevant performance markers to go. You know, it is a big thing to not lose that, regardless of City. No one has ever done it. How long's Guardiola been a manager for? 15 years, 18 years, different divisions, different leagues. No one's ever gone 5 games unbeaten against him. So, you know, that is a marker. It's not where we want to be. It's not what Arsenal Football Club are trying to achieve, and it's not what we want to take home at the end of the season. But it is a marker, and I do think it's the conversation we had before earlier in this podcast. You know, Liverpool have still got to go and play Manchester City. Manchester City will get stronger as Rodri gets fitter, as they get, you know, Pep Guardiola's chosen to play this different style of play and just make them harder to beat. You know, they will get more comfortable playing in that fashion, and they do have a lot of threat on the counter attack. And we know Liverpool's defence is far from watertight. So, like Arteta said in his post match, if you can't win the game, don't lose the game. And you know, that was crucially important, and it's enough. Rightly or wrongly, it's enough. At the end of the day, if you're Manchester City, Liverpool, and Arsenal in that little trio league, and you come out of that league with as many points as the other two, that's all you need to do. So to your question from earlier in this podcast as well, you know, I'm not worried about the points Arsenal dropped, not necessarily because they've been dropped against Liverpool and City. If we beat, smash is probably a far exaggeration. If we beat everybody else, which is what Gyökeres was bought for, people talk about Gyökeres being a flat track bully. Gyökeres was bought to make sure that all those draws against lower teams last season, Arsenal win this season. That's what Eze was bought for. That's what Madueke was bought for. So if we come out of if we beat Liverpool at the Emirates, if we draw with City at the Etihad or beat City at the Etihad, then none of these 2 games matters for anything. Depending on what City do against Liverpool, but so no, it's strange. I was happy with how he played. I just hope that, I mean, I know I'm patronising him now, but I just hope Arteta sees how good that team was between, ignore extra time for a minute, injury time, between 45 minutes and 65 minutes. So before we just chucked all the attackers on, you know, that team with probably actually, I'd like to see Trossard off and Martinelli on, to be fair, but with Saka, Eze, and ideally Martinelli behind Gyökeres. Forget playing Merino, Rice, and Zubimendi. You know, Rice and Zubimendi are more than enough tackling potential for 99%. Well, 99% of matches you'll ever play. You don't need Merino, Rice, and Zubimendi. It's too defensive, and you should let Eze have his head, certainly while Odegaard's injured. And I don't see it ever play that. I think the thing that was frustrating was he would never have played that midfield if Odegaard had been fit. Right. It would have been Rice, Zubimendi, and Odegaard. He would not have put Merino on instead of Odegaard. So I think it showed Arteta needs to get his trust in Eze. I think that was why it's really good that Eze looked so good in that second half. It was nice for him to get the assist as well. All right, he didn't get his goal, but it was a lovely assist, a lovely spot, a lovely ball. And fair play Martinelli, you know, and Arteta can talk about finishes and all the rest of it. Fundamentally, Martinelli, again, people have short memories. I saw Arsenal fans last season turning on him because he had a few poor games, whatever, but over the years, that boy has done wonders for our club. He's been so loyal. He said time and again he wants to keep maintaining, finish his career at Arsenal. He does nothing but perform for us when he puts the shirt on, and give his best. What else can you ask? For me, not a lot else. 2 matches running now, he's dug us out of shit.
Yeah.
Midweek this week and this weekend. So frustrated, a draw, I suppose, overall. But like I say, with 92 minutes gone, I'd have snatched your hand off. So it feels like a Loud Jail free card. But as I say, it's Liverpool are the big winners out of that game,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Unfortunately, yeah. There was another game on Sunday as well, sorry, and I have gone slightly out of sync here, and we'll just touch on it quickly before we jump off. And that was the Burnley and Forest game.
Do you mean on
Uh,
Saturday?
it was, yeah. I don't know how I've managed to go out of sync, but I have, yeah. And that was one apiece. Nathan got that correct with one apiece. I also had one apiece. You had Burnley down for a 2-1 win. So if we quickly want to touch
Yeah.
on that, any thoughts? Did you see much of it?
I didn't see much of it. No. But I think a bit like we were saying with Brighton, really. I think if you're Forest and you 1-0 up inside 2 minutes, you should be pushing a promoted side harder than that. When you look at how well Forest did last season and how on the cusp, well, they're in Europe, aren't they? But on the cusp of Champions League places they were last season. I think you've got to go to Burnley. You've got to do better than that. I think.
Yeah.
I think Postecoglou has. I just don't think they've traded up. I just don't understand. Maybe I'm too defensive like Arteta. I don't know as an Arsenal fan, but I was nothing in the world could make me swap Nuno for Postecoglou. I just think it's at best it's a sideways shift. At worst, it's a downward shift. I just don't see it, and I think Forest have certainly not had any new manager bounce, and that would be in my mind if I was Marinakis, I suppose. But he'll say he's got his reasons, and I guess at the end of the day, the proof will be the fact he's only brought Postecoglou in to win the Europa League. So if Postecoglou wins Europa League, I think Marinakis will forgive him anything. But absolutely solid from Burnley. Again, promoted side who are going to rely on home form, who've come back from 1 goal down, looked organised, looked solid. And again, you would say did a job, because if you'd said to us in the summer, promoted side getting a draw against a team that only just missed out on Champions League spots, you're going to say, well, that's a really good performance. Really good performance. And they've only just missed out against Liverpool. They've only just missed out against Man United. They've got the draw against Forest. It's good signs for Burnley that they're not out of any match that they're taking part in and competing in. And they're actually getting some points on the board, which is important for them, but not enough for Forest. And like I said, I just think it's a really strange. Must feel really strange as a Forest fan at the minute after all the positivity last season. You must feel really just the overriding feeling must be apprehension at the minute. What is this move, and is it the right move? And at the minute, there's nothing screaming out at you that this is the right move. And I think there's nothing in that result of the weekend that would make you think Postecoglou was the right choice.
Debatable, and it's not. I don't understand it myself, to be honest with you. I think Dubravka fully kept Burnley in that game. He made some great saves. So maybe it would have been a different result if Dabs hadn't been on form. Maybe Forest would have won. But yeah, positive from Burnley, like you say, proving that again they can ride some of these these results out.
They built their promotion on defence. We talked about it last season when we were talking about who was coming up, and we said, didn't we, that maybe Burnley were better equipped than Leeds because Burnley had the better defensive record. I know Leeds had the second best defensive record, but they showed last season they know how to defend. And all right, James Trafford took a lot of the plaudits, but fundamentally, if your goalkeeper doesn't have to make a save, then it doesn't matter who your goalkeeper is, does it? So defensively organised. And I think that will serve them well because Wolves are not defensively organised, and Brentford are struggling, and others that we've talked about in West Ham and Villa, would snatch your hand off to have Burnley's defensive organisation right now. So it's a good sign for Burnley, I think, but I think nothing like I say again from Forest that would yet pass judgment on Postecoglou being any better than Nuno.
No, so I guess all the time will tell with that one, then we'll just have to see how it all unfolds. But yeah, some positives for all the promoted clubs this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so.
Good to see. It's better than...
I think we called it in our in our predictions, didn't we, at the start of the season around?
Yeah.
We didn't have some of us didn't have all the promoted teams getting relegated. And I don't think there's anything that suggests. I would think it would take a minor miracle now for all 3 promoted teams to get relegated, even 5 games in. But stranger things have happened. Don't quote me.
Yes, so I might have to touch on the league predictions again at some point soon. But we have 5 games in now, and the Fantasy Football League is starting to take a little bit of shape.
Devastated.
Not a great weekend on them for
It's
yourself
not
this
taking
week.
a good shape. It's not taking a good shape. No, thanks to probably coloured some of my commentaries, to be fair, but thanks to Chelsea's incompetence and Arsenal, flat performance, and Spurs drop into it. Just awful for myself, to be fair. But I think you're under orders, aren't you, to give a shout out for one of the teams this week, aren't
Somebody
you?
is going to get a shout out on the Fantasy League this weekend, and that's Sarah, due to the fact that she missed the first game week and somehow has managed to accelerate herself up to the table, up to 10th.
It is.
And Nathan, who is not here tonight, again saying misses out on some stick, has found himself rock bottom of our league.
He is with a fellow Aston Villa fan in Young Dean, also second bottom. So maybe the Aston Villa curse is.
Maybe there's a theme going on here. Ian
fact,
Taylor as well, the legend Ian Taylor himself as well. So we've got 3 Villa
3 villas
influences
is
at the bottom
absolutely
3.
rock bottom. So this Aston Villa curse is far more than just the great Aston Villa themselves. It's impacting all of our lives in fantasy football.
I'm nicely in 4th. Why I am Magpie sat there nicely 4th. Bruno Tanares just below me. I've just gone 1 point above the missus.
Oh, there's a grudge point right there. Oof.
Another shout out this weekend is to Blake Beaner. 26 points scored this weekend, the lowest score this weekend. The highest score was obviously Sarah sent. It was obviously that's taken a massive league. But yeah, we're going to continue to integrate our fantasy league into the chat as we can, and we'll every now and again we'll update and give people a shout out.
Absolutely. Well, maybe I'll have to try and work out, try and get a shout out now that we know we're doing them. Maybe that'll motivate me to be better than the absolute tosh that I've been doing so far.
If you do get a shout out, though, you've got to like and subscribe at least. That's the very least I ask.
That's the reward we want.
But yeah, as far as week 5 review, I think we pretty much covered every result. Touched on most things this weekend. We'll be back live again next Tuesday. I believe we're live next week. We'll follow up this video with an upload Thursday or Friday. Please like, please subscribe, hit that notification bell so that you don't miss out on any content we upload. But for myself and Phil, it's good night from us too, and we'll catch you again soon.
Thanks for listening, folks.
Cheers, guys. See you again soon.